Hi all, I want to look at a high-level correspondence game today between Wolfram Scron and Carcassonne. It was played in a World Championship Candidates tournament. Wolfram Scron is currently ranked 8 in the world at correspondence chess. He played knight f3, which he doesn't actually usually play, and after c5 we have the transposition into the English opening with c4 now and c5 being played. So after knight c6 and knight c3, black played e5, trying to create a bind on the d4 square. Now white could have chosen to play, say, g3 or d3 here, but they would have been quite passive. The way white played it was quite aggressive to try and break this bind on d4 quite rapidly. Wolfram played e3, and after knight f6 played d4, which even allows, after cd, ed, black to sort of get a kind of Nimzo-Indian strategy going, after e4, knight g5, to now play bishop b4, and potentially saddle white with doubled pawns. However, white was not concerned with this, and played d5, allowing black to double the pawns. Now, after bishop takes and bc, black played knight a5, and we see now that this c4 square and the pawn on it could be a problem now for white. So white now actually played f3, trying to undermine this e4 pawn immediately, and this semi-open f-file might be useful if white castles later. Black just castled now here, and after bishop e2 played rook e8. White castled, and now black played e3. So this pawn is becoming quite pesky and a thorn in white's position. White now played knight e4, potentially with the idea of just taking the pawn later, but black just ignored it here and played d6. So white took that pawn on e3, and now bishop f5 was played, with quite a lot of pressure on this e-file. However, white was not too concerned. He played knight takes f6 check, and after queen takes f6, played the centralising move bishop d4, gaining a tempo on white's queen, and the bishop looks to sit comfortably on d4 at the moment. After queen d8, rook e1, and now black played b6, and we see here a potential strategic idea from black of queen c7, either to target this square, or knight b7 to c5 to blockade on c5. So this could be a concern for white. White first of all played queen d2, and after bishop g6 now retreated the bishop on f1 to contest the e-file. Now after queen c7, white is a pawn up, although this plan of knight b7 to c5 threatens to give black a very good position blockading the extra pawn by white. So instead of accepting that, white just sacrificed now a c-pawn by playing c5. So it's a positional pawn sacrifice, and if black takes with the d-pawn, then this d5 pawn will be a strong passed pawn. So black took with the b-pawn, and white now played bishop f2. So material equality is being restored in the position, but white for the moment has the two bishops, and also we're going to see now a very interesting plan. After h6, white wanted to use this f-pawn now as a battering ram for white's to batter these pawns up and to potentially isolate them. Now the start of this plan was first bishop d3, clearing the pawn's path to the f5 square. After bishop d3, queen d3, rook ab8. Now the pawn starts going forward. So it's threatening to slice up black's pawn structure on the king side. But there's another factor very important in this position, this knight on a5, as we're going to see now. Queen d7, queen a6. So black's committed to doing something about this knight. There was an exchange of rooks now, and queen d8. And now we see play on both sides of the board, which is something I've noticed is typical in Wolfram's games, how he masterly can play on both sides of the board to exert a lot more pressure. He plays now f5, and after rook b2 he plays a4. So he doesn't mind this potentially dangerous rook on the 7th rank, and we see now an even more amazing idea he leaves, first of all, this d5 pawn and pre. After queen b5, the threat is now rook e8 check, forking the queen king. So king h7, but now he plays h3, not concerned about rook takes d5. Let's have a quick look at that. Rook d5, there would have been potentially f6, and the queen can't take because the queen takes a5, so gf, and now bishop h4, and you see the doubling of the pawns and pressure being exerted on this pawn. And for example, rook d2, queen b1 check, gaining a very important tempo to get to the f5 square, king g7, queen f5, and white would be much better here with lots of threats. So that was a very cunning pawn sacrifice, but it wasn't accepted by black. Black played h5, and now white plays f6. So this pawn, which had started on f3, has gone to f6 now, fulfilling this major strategic plan, and even allowing black to simply to apparently gain a tempo attacking black's bishop. But we attack the bishop here, but this knight here is still stranded, and now white plays bishop e3, winning material by force, with the rook and knight both in pre. So this is now a very sharp position, but white ends up better. After queen c3, bishop d2, and now queen e2 here, white is the exchange up. And if the pawn situation is currently 3 pawns for the exchange, which looks okay in principle, but this knight's still stranded on a5. So in this position, black had to give up this d6 pawn. Now let's look at why. For example, if queen c6, then queen takes h5 check. So this is a very dangerous position for black. If queen e5, then just rook d5 after queen takes e5, d takes e5. So black gave up one of the pawns, so it's only 2 pawns for the exchange now. So white is materially up and decides to consolidate the position by the exchange of queens. And now this endgame showed the a pawn being very dangerous, and black's knight couldn't do much about that. So black resigns here. Let's have a quick overview and summary of this game. So it was a knight f3 system transposing to the English, and white immediately broke the bind on d4, allowing black to double the pawns, and now the e3 pawn was surrounded, and white spectacularly gave back the pawn to stop the use of c4 or c5 by black. But now the remarkable plan was this bishop d3, which actually liberated this humble pawn on f3 to be a dangerous attacking force for the black position, and attacking on both sides of the board. So this f6 move became key in this position, and after queen f6, white forcefully won the exchange, and this ending position, where white was the exchange up, was an easy win because of the white a pawn. So it was another excellently played game by Wolfram Scon, who's currently ranked 8 in the world at correspondence chess, and shows how you can play on both sides of the board, and it also demonstrates positional plans in action, and even a positional pawn sacrifice. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks very much. See you on YouTube.